If you're in the market to buy a float tube or you ever wanted to buy a float tube, this is the video you want. We're going to talk about price, functionality, weight, and whether you can pack it or not. Stay tuned.
That's a big brown.
Hey, this is Curtis with Fly Fish Food. So, if you are in the market to buy a float tube or upgrade your float tube, this is the video to watch. And we're doing a new cut of this video. It's 2024. So we're going to inject in some new prices, some new boats, a totally refreshed buying guide. Now, when I say float tubes, we're talking about your traditional float tubes, a couple of new kind of entries into the market. And then also we're going to include some lower weight, lowish weight, frameless pontoon boats. There are a lot of other types of pontoon boats that have frames. That we're not going to talk about those because I wouldn't necessarily consider them in the float tube genre. But for float tubes, we're going to talk about different considerations when you are buying a float tube. So first and foremost, you obviously have price. There are some really expensive ones in this guide. There are also some relatively inexpensive ones. So we'll talk about the price for each of these and kind of the trade-off, what you get when you pay the extra money. Okay, we're going to talk about features. At the end of the day, you just need the boats to float. If you're going to pack them, you also want them lightweight. So we'll talk a little bit about weight. And then also construction. There are some considerations. Primarily, we're talking vinyl versus urethane bladders. I'm not as concerned about what's on the outside so much. Those are all relatively equal. I mean, there's going to be some that are more puncture-proof or whatever on the outside. But the bladder is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. And combine all those things, and that will hopefully allow you to arrive at a good point where you feel comfortable and confident buying the boat that you want for the type of fishing you're going to do and support what you want to accomplish with that boat. Okay, one caveat. There are, of course, a plethora of a lot of other boats that are out there in the market that we don't carry. So you could go down to your local Walmart or your local Cabela's, and you could find maybe some cheaper options, maybe some off-brands. Here, what we tend to do is we tend to sell the ones that we would fish with. So we're dealing primarily with Dave Scadden boats and, of course, Outcast. I would say Outcast right now in terms of variety and coverage and price combination would be one of your main and kind of the stalwarts of the float tube world. But I would also say that Scadden gives extreme thought and very good design to his boats. I've fished on Scadden boats for years, as I have with Outcast. Those are my two go-tos. And that's why we'll probably keep most of these limited to those two brands. Now, you can go outside of that. What I'm going to tell you here is just some examples of the types of boats and the features that we're kind of categorizing these with, which you could go down to your local sporting goods store, big box, or whatever you want to do. If you need to save a little money, they've got some good options there. But I'm going to give you those considerations so that whatever you do, whether you buy it here on our website, we'll have some of the links down below, or if you want to go and buy it at your sporting goods store, doesn't matter. These will be considerations that you can use when you go to buy a new float tube or upgrade what you have. Okay, so the first category, I'm going to break these into three categories, and they tend to kind of go with price. So that's why I've grouped them like this. So we're going to start at more of what I would call the entry-level boat. That would include the fact that these are, by and large, going to be lighter weight boats. So I would call this the packable, less expensive boat option. So the first boat on that list is going to be the Outcast Fish Cat Rise. So this is a boat. It comes in at $250 and it's only 8 pounds. So first and foremost, this will support, I think, up to 350 pounds. So it can support most people that are out there fishing. Now, this one does have vinyl bladders. As a side note, as we talk about bladders, now there is some disagreement on this, but I have, at least for my part, I have found urethane, when it comes to vinyl versus urethane, urethane's going to be a little bit tougher and more puncture resistant. And so what you'll see is that when we're talking about urethane boats, you're going to pay a little bit more. If you're going to be bouncing around off-road and pulling boats up onto ATVs and that sort of thing, I would put a little bit more emphasis and focus on the urethane bladders. Either way, I'll let you know which of these is urethane, which are vinyl. But by and large, vinyl is going to be more kind of entry-level, lower cost. Urethane is going to be the tougher, going to spend a little bit more money type of thing. Okay, so the Rise in addition to being small form factor, one of the disadvantages, and then we'll talk about this in each of the boats, is that you sit essentially in the water. So you're not like up to your chest, but you're going to be sitting kind of, let's call it butt deep. It's going to keep you mostly out of the water, but you're still in a little bit of the water. And you'll find that on some of these lighter weight boats. But coming in at only 8 pounds, it's a very attractive option, especially if you want to be packing this boat up into the high country. So that's a good one. Now, if you want to upgrade a little bit from there, we do have the Summit, also from Outcast. And that one is going to run us a little bit more. It's going to be urethane bladders, but it's going to be only 7 pounds. So that's a good one. If you wanted to, again, go even lighter, have something more durable, that would be my pick for just throw it in a bag. You can pack it. You can throw it on an ATV easily enough. And it's going to be small, lightweight, but still support your weight. So that's a good one. Either of those two boats are going to be fairly limited to maybe smaller water. I wouldn't necessarily want to be out on a big giant lake, maybe out in the middle, but you can certainly, they will float, so you can really fish them anywhere you feel comfortable, where it's safe and that fits your needs. The main thing with these lighter weight packable boats is that you may not be packing up into the wilderness, but just the fact that you've got a small form factor, you can put them in a truck or an ATV or pack them. That is a game changer, especially if you have even 100 yards to walk from your rig to the water. It's still very convenient to have these lighter weight boats. All right, with the next and final boat in this category, we have the Skadden Slash. Now, it is a bit more expensive at $899, but it is a pontoon boat essentially in a mini form factor, and it weighs only 9 pounds. So part of this design, and I think this is genius, is that you've got this little platform, this kind of like a stand-up paddleboard platform that inflates, and then that sits perpendicular and on top of the two pontoons. So the cool thing about that is that you sit up entirely out of the water, and you're maybe mid-shin deep with your feet and boots only in the water. So that's nice. You get to stay up. So the staying up out of the water does two things. Number one, it's much warmer to not sit in the water. And number two, you have a slightly higher vantage point, which can make a big difference depending on where you're fishing. The fact that it has that stand-up paddleboard type platform, you can deflate both of the pontoons and kind of fold them in on themselves and then use that as your backpack frame. Or you could pack it horizontally with the frame or with the pontoon still inflated and hang stuff off. That's what I typically do. You could do it either way. You could actually deflate the whole thing, put it in a bag, and then as long as you bring a pump, you're off to the races. Now, again, that one's a little higher priced, but I think it's worth it because it's just as packable as any of the others, and it's super flexible, durable, because it can do a lot of different things and keep you out of the water. So don't forget that one. And again, any of these we're going to list down in our in the description below, so you'll have the links and know if you want more information or want to purchase them, we will have them available on our website. Okay, second category, I would still call these boats packable, these float tubes. But I would call them less pontoony. So they are going to be a little heavier, but also have more room for you and support a little bit more weight. So first off, we've got the Fish Cat 4, and that comes in basically two flavors. There's the regular one, which is going to be vinyl bladder, and then there's the deluxe, which is going to come in a urethane bladder. Okay, to start this next category, we're going to talk about the Fish Cat 4. Now, that comes in two different versions. There's the regular one, and then there's the Fish Cat 4 Deluxe. Those are basically the Fish Cat 4. The regular one has a foam seat, so you are sitting a little above the water. It will keep you relatively dry. And then the Deluxe sits you a little higher off the water, and the seat and the backrest are also inflatable. So that's going to save you on a little bit of weight, and it's also easier to pack down. The Fish Cat 4 regular is $299, and the Deluxe runs at $399. They're around 16 and 15 pounds, respectively, so they're not super heavy. I've used these before in the past. I've packed them into lakes. I've put them onto ATVs. Never had any issues. Again, so and these are vinyl bladders, so they're not the most durable, but at that price point, you're still not spending an arm and a leg on a boat, and this is going to support you. They're going to have plenty of room for storage. And they're kind of a U-V-shaped, U or V, depending how you look at it, shape. So they're not diaper donuts. They certainly have the open front, which is nice. They're very, very flexible boats. and don't weigh as much so that you can still pack them. Okay, I'm going to inject one other boat into this that's similar. So it's the Fish Cat Cruiser. Basically the same boat as those, but they've put oar locks on it, and it's going to weigh a little bit more. So I think it's around 18 pounds. It's going to run you $459, so it's going to be a little bit more expensive. If you do like the idea of having oars on the water, this is a good way to go. I will just tell you that, so it's a good boat in execute. In theory, I found that in execution, I have not gotten a good cadence on the oars. I found that they kind of overlap a little. Definitely doable, but I'd say don't expect this small form rowable boat to act like the bigger style boats that we would get with like a framed pontoon or some of the bigger boats we'll talk about at the end of the video that are more of your frameless pontoons that have legit oars. Not to say these aren't legit oars, but again, I'm just letting you know that if you do want to have that extra capability of rowing on the boat, the Cruiser is one. Pay a little bit more money, same type of thing. You can still pack it in there. Obviously, you're going to have a little extra weight and a little extra weight with the oars, but that could do the trick for you. Okay, now to round out this kind of middle category, what I'd still say is packable, is currently our best-selling float tube is the Super Fat Cat from Outcast. Now, the reason I like the Super Fat Cat is the price isn't crazy. It's still only $5.99. They are urethane bladders, so you've got the upgraded bladder, more durable. This one has inflatable seats, which again I like because you can pack them down, make it a lot compact. And then this only weighs 13 pounds. So out of all the boats that I've had over the years, this is the one that I've probably packed the most. I've packed it with the backpack straps, which we do have available. You can actually turn any float tube that you want to put on your back into a backpack by virtue of these backpack straps. We'll have a link below for those backpack straps. And they don't work just on Outcast boats. You can rig them with Skadden boats or any other type of boat that you want. Extremely useful. And then, and as well as any of these smaller boats can fit in the boat bag that Outcast sells, which we also have, coincidentally, as a link below. Anyway, so when it comes to compact, packable, but yet good features, sits you high out of the water with those inflatable seats, the Super Fat Cat is probably my favorite boat over the years, although the Skadden Slash in the category we talked about earlier is gaining ground. Anyway, so that's a premier boat, and at that price, I think you're still in really good shape, and you've got the best combination, I think, of price and then feature set. Okay, now the final category, these are not technically float tubes, because I think in general, we're referring to a float tube as what people used to throw an inner tube and get in it and sit in a diaper kind of a thing. These are not necessarily float tubes, but neither are the V-tube or U-tube boats that we've talked about earlier in this video. So, but I'm going to put it out there because these are relatively lightweight. They are frameless. They're packable, so you can compact them down if you wanted to haul them up on an ATV or something, or put them in the bed of a truck. So you can still do that. So the first one, and this is a vinyl bladder, and that's the Outcast Scout. Okay, now this one is $895, so it's quite a bit more expensive than some of these other boats we've talked about. It does weigh 35 pounds. So it's a heavier boat, but the advantage you get with this, it's longer. The pontoons or the tubes are significantly wider diameter so that you have a little bit more stability. Obviously, you may not want to backpack this very far, but I have packed this one when needed up to a mile. Wasn't the funnest, but it did work. So it's not like a 100-pound framed pontoon boat. So these are great. It also has some storage space behind your seat. And you can put, as with most of these boats, you can actually put storage on the back of your seat with one of those little seat caddies. So that's a good one. Now we go a step up from that, and we have the Outcast Stealth Pro boat. So it's basically slightly bigger. It's going to have urethane bladders, and it's going to be around the same weight. But it will run you over $1,200. I think $1,270 is the price on that one. So you'll pay a little bit more money. If you are, let's say, maybe you're a bigger person, maybe you like to have that added stability, you want to get out there on bigger water and feel safer, this would be a good one for you. We like these style of boats because let's say you do have a very mild river, as well as lakes, Stillwater's bigger, smaller, doesn't matter. These style boats, both the Scout and the Stealth Pro, would be great options for you. And then rounding out that grouping, would be the Skadden Stiletto Ultra Low Pro. And by that, I mean the Skadden Lightning Strike Stiletto Ultra Low Pro Michael Scott Rabies Awareness Fun Run. Oh, sorry. No, the last part. Anyway, it is a great lightweight pontoon boat that features, so dual pontoons, which is nice. It is a pontoon boat style, and it also has that stand-up paddleboard style seat. And not only that, it has a little platform behind that where you could put gear, give you a little bit more space. So I like this one because it is lightweight, weighing only 26 pounds. These bladders are extremely durable, and it's only $999. So price-wise, it's right in there with those the two Outcast boats that we talked about. So it's going to be more expensive than some of these other ones, but this is the one if you wanted the true kind of not crazy break the bank, but it could do rivers, it could do big lakes, it could do small streams. You could, if you needed to, at 26 pounds, you could hike it in if you wanted a little bit. So it's a super flexible boat. And obviously with that style where it's sitting on top of the pontoons, you are going to be mostly out of the water. So as we wrap this up, again, consider obviously price. Whether you want vinyl or urethane, but really we're talking form factor, where you want to be. Is it more important to be sitting up out of the water? Is it more important to have the lightest boat possible because you're hiking 20 miles, or you're going to throw this into the back of a truck or something, so you don't want a vinyl bladder that could be punctured more easily versus, say, urethane? Anyway, I hope these have all helped you at least arrive to some level of conclusion of what you want to fish. And if you have any questions, drop those in the comments below, and we'll try to get back to you as best we can. If you want to check any of these out, they are in the links below. You can go to our website, flyfishfood.com. And if you want to come into any of our two locations, we've got one in Idaho Falls and Orem, Utah, we'd be glad to see you.